Suki Hotu, and welcome to the Buddhist Mahavihara's Facebook page. We are going live today again from the Buddhist Dhamma Dana series that we hold every week. Tonight, we have the valuable opportunity to listen to a very interesting Dhamma topic titled The Real Buddha's Message as I See It, by Dr. Gamini Abhaya. And this evening session will be Dr. Gamini's first or inaugural session under the BMV Dhamma Dana series. Dr. Gamini is currently based in England, so it's about 1:30 his time, and we will get him to the studio right now. Hi, Dr. Gamini. Welcome to the Buddhist Dhamma Dana series, the BMV Dhamma Dana series. Welcome, Dr. Gamini.
Thank you.
Thank you for, first and foremost, graciously accepting our request to share on the Dhamma this evening, titled The Real Buddha's Message as I See It. We understand that you have the noble aim to create awareness on the correct path to Nibbana and clearing misconceptions about Buddhist teachings from your own experiences where possible. This is indeed a noble effort because over 2,500 years has passed since the Buddhist teachings came about. And along the way, some of these teachings may have evolved from what the Lord Buddha originally taught. So we look forward to this important topic to correct our own understanding where possible. And in this regard, we request for all audience to keep an open mind to the topic and sharings tonight. It is with an open mind that we can continue to get closer to the original Buddha's teaching. Now, for those not familiar, we will give an introduction to Dr. Gamini Abhaya. Dr. Gamini hails from a very respectable family, and he had his education at Ananda College, which is a premier majority Buddhist school. He excelled in his studies and sports and then entered Colombo Medical College. In the medical faculty, he too excelled in the academic work and cricket sports. He then went to England and several other countries to specialize and practice medicine. And he passed the specialist exams and worked as a physician in a number of countries with special interest in cardiology. Now he has dedicated his life to conducting talks and discussions on the Buddha Dhamma, where he espouses the original Buddha doctrine or message. He and about 500 of his followers have now entered the path towards Nibbana. The notable thing about him is his great interest and efforts to show the way to all and to create awareness on the correct path to Nibbana. He does everything not as a profession, but instead, he has dedicated his life to spreading the truth without expecting anything in return. Now, I will hand over the studio to Dr. Gamini Abhaya to begin this evening's Dhamma sharing. Dr. Gamini, I'll exit now.
Thank you very much for that very kind introduction. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, those who are in Malaysia and in the Asian subcontinent, and good day for those who are living elsewhere in the world who are listening to this discussion. Now, today I'm hoping to give a sort of brief introduction to the experiences that I had in entering the path to Nibbana, and also giving you some idea about where we are going and where we are now, very briefly to introduce you to this kind of discussion. And I must tell you at the beginning that some of the things I'm going to say are not very conventional, and they deviate away from convention. And as we know very well, the people who have attained Nibbana are not known at the current time, and also we have not recorded in the history for about 2100 years who have finally achieved the final stages, that is Arahatship. So this Buddha's message uh, is either we haven't understood properly or we are not practicing or moving along the path in the right direction. So I'm going to give you a brief introduction about what is um, the essence of this path. And in this path, where we are going is something that is very important. In fact, the Buddha word itself is now linked to a person called Buddha, who never called himself Buddha, although he said he was Tathagata, which has a different meaning. And we have linked to a person um, the doctrine or the philosophy that we all trying to follow. But really, his main message was there is a person called me within this body. Although we feel, we think there is one, whenever there is a thought, you have the idea of a person called me existing. But that is an illusion, and that is what Tathagata said. So we have sort of deviated from the the main meaning of Buddha. And Buddha, the word comes from Bud and Tha. Bud means knowledge. Tha is from within. So it is a knowledge from within, which is Buddha. It's a state of affairs where everyone is capable of seeing the state of Buddha. And we all know that seeing Buddha is a concept in those who follow Buddhist principles, and we know that after the parinibbana of Tathagata, that there were so many people who became arahants, and they all did after seeing Buddha. So it wasn't a live person that they saw; it was a state of Buddha that arose from within. So the first thing that we need to know is when we are looking forward to see Buddha, do not expect a person there because his main message was there is no person within this body. It is only a thought and only a momentary feeling that there is a person existing within this system. So, and also there are those who read books. There are in the books somebody called Wakkali was looking at Tathagata's body and was looking at him all the time, and he told him that you will not see Buddha by looking at me. So that is a very clear indication of that it is not a person you're going to see. So then there are other words that come in this path. One of them is Nibbana. Another word is Dhamma. And I will explain the meaning of the word Dhamma as well as I saw it, because Dhamma has to be seen and Buddha also has to be seen, but not through the normal eyes we have, the sense organs, but through a special eye that arises again from within the body called prajna. And this eye is capable of seeing things that you can't normally see through your sense organ eyes. So Dhamma basically means the truth. Amma means the mother. That's the mother nature, basically. So it means that the truth of the mother nature that you see. In fact, well, it can be described as the way it is, exactly the way it is. Although the way it is something that we can't see from our eyes, but we see through our sense organs, and we hear and we smell, we touch, and through those sense organs, the information we get from outside forms an illusion. It's not the real truth or Dhamma, because the Dhamma is at a different level which our sense organs cannot have access to. And therefore, we realize that what we actually see and what we hear are actually all illusions. So, this is not a conventional talk that I'm going to give about a story from previous or a book or anything like that, but I'm going to talk about the real situation that we exist or we are believed to be existing in this world. And in this world, we have what you call the internal side of it, which is known as Abhyantara. And then there is the section that is outside our body, which is the space outside our body, which is known as Bahira. So in these two categories, we keep accumulating the information from outside through our sense organs and process it inside. And when we process this information inside, the actual things we see here are, now I said, are illusions. Why do I call them illusions? Because there's not the real truth. Because the real truth is Dhamma and Buddha. So those who are looking to find the truth will go in a path and achieve seeing of Dhamma and Buddha. And in that path, you've got to first recognize where you are. And where you are is we are living in an illusion. Now I'll give you a few examples as to why I say that we are living an illusion. Now look at the if you look at a tree from outside, from inside, your eyes will see a tree. What do you actually see in the tree? You will see light rays that fall on the tree. Some of the colors of the light rays will get absorbed into the tree, and then those which are not absorbed get reflected off the tree and fall on our eyes. And then that information is processed within our mind, and then it creates an image with a form, shape, and color, which is not actually what the tree is, because the tree contains colors and information that we have not had chance to access to. Whatever that is not in the tree will form an image, and that falls on the back of our eye, and that's transferred through various means to the mind at the end, and the mind perceives it as something that we have identified and named it as a tree. And you see that we have not got any information about the tree. Actually, all that is not the tree has formed this image. Similarly, all those who study modern science know that although we call the leaves in the tree green colored, most of them, they are not actually green, because it does absorb all the colors except green, and the green is reflected off the leaves towards our eyes, and we perceive it as green. So actually the leaf is all the colors except green. So we never know. And also in scientific terms, we know that uh, the trees, the leaves, and all the things in nature are formed of atoms and protons, electrons. But we don't see it that way. We see it like with a form, shape, and color, an image formed through those with those three characters that falls on the back of our eye, and it's the same for all the other sense organs as well. So basically, you're living and continuing to live, interacting with outside in an illusion. So when you actually realize that it's an illusion, the first thing that everybody wants to do is to find out what it is actually is, and that is what we call reality. Reality is exactly the way it is, and it is actually the state of Dhamma. And this state of Dhamma, once you see, you go beyond to another stage, which is called Buddha. And these two terms in Pali language is the Yathartha. Yathartha means the way it is, that is Dhamma, and Paramartha. Paramartha means the state beyond Yathartha, that is the ultimate truth. These two we call the truth, and that's also known as Buddha Dhamma. So a Buddha's message is always to find this truth, Buddha Dhamma, and these are two things that a person can see, but not as a person, not as me or you or I. At the time you see, the eye of Prajna opens, there is no person in that. And is, in fact, that eye is also not a physical eye, but there is only seeing, and you will see, I call it you at the time, this moment for you to understand. And the eye of Prajna will see Buddha and Dhamma. So, who sees Buddha and Dhamma is the eye of Prajna. So, that just gave you a brief introduction to ask you where you are now. What sort of life are you uh, in existence, and where the truth is, and what's roughly a very brief introduction as to what this truth is. So, if you try to learn about the truth and understand through your mind, you will not get the actual information about the truth. So, you will find that even in Buddhist literature, description about Nibbana is also very vague, and description about Dhamma is also very vague, because if it were to be exactly precise, then people will understand through the mind and form an image again, another illusion within the mind, and that will obstruct the path to Nibbana. So, in this introduction, I have not been very conventional, and the convention states that there is a person called me, and that person should behave in such a way, and so that that person will ultimately, at some stage, they have usually postponed this to future lives, um, to see Nibbana. And actually, if somebody asks you, when will you see Nibbana? The answer is Sandiptiko. Sandiptiko means here and now, right this moment. You don't postpone anything. And in fact, by listening to the truth, and that's one of the ways of attaining Nibbana or seeing Nibbana, is by listening to the truth as told by somebody else. And there's another way, just as how Tathagata did, to do it on your own. And these two methods have been in the history in the past, but they have all been corrupted by various accumulations in the writings from time to time. And at the end, what you have now is something that you cannot unentangle. This is all entangled like a ball of wool or ball of thread that's been entangled, knotted in many areas that you cannot actually unknot or unentangle this by reading it and understanding, and also by using the mind to trying to analyze it. Because one of the problems of us seeing this illusion all the time is the mind. Because now mind is another entity that science has not been able to have access to, and most scientists believe brain is a part of the mind, but it is not. You will see the mind with your prajna, but it is not the actual mind you see, another stage beyond the mind, which is called chitta, but it is a different entity to your physical body. So in that mind, you process lots of things, information from outside, and those which come from outside are all illusions, because the truth is actually within you, inside. So you will understand the Buddha, Dhamma, Ayu Prajna are all within you, and everybody is capable of seeing those within you if you provide the circumstances for the eye of the Prajna to open. And this eye of Prajna is hidden inside you. Doesn't it come out easily? The reason is because you keep interacting with outside all the time. And when you don't interact with outside, that means when you stop thinking, you're fast asleep. So you can't find anything. So during the time you are awake, you always have to interact because your sense organs are directed towards outside. They are not directed towards inside to see anything, to extract any information from inside. So what you have to do is to try and stop this current system that's operating and see what happens. And that current system of ending everything, ending up in a thought, is mediated by your sense organs, then the structure between the sense organ and the mind, and your memory. Memory is part of the brain, and those interact together to form and identify images that are actually not there outside. That is, what you see is not what you should know they are to be actually. So, what is actually there is something different. So all these forms, shapes, and colors that get information through the eyes, and all sorts of sounds and feelings, smell and taste, and they're all coming from outside sources, and they does not provide you with the truth that you should unearth from inside. So this message has been there for about 500 years after Tathagata's Parinibbana, but after that it was lost, and it became a religion. So originally it was seeing Buddha, which is also called Buddha Darshana. Darshana means seeing, or Buddha vision. Vision here, I mean, is actually seeing something. But it became a, a religion after some time, and then after it became a religion, people had started to write books about it, and they included their own versions of it, and ultimately we have ended up with information that we cannot unentangle. We can only take one or two and from a corner and discuss, but they are all hidden inside, but we cannot unearth and exactly know what it is, because there are so many other things entangled around them that we don't know whether they're true or wrong. So it's difficult from the mind to analyze them to understand exactly whether these are correct or not. So when it became a religion, and um, we described a religion uh, as the word that is used is agama. Agama came from a word, three words. You take the first letters together, and it formed another word. It's called Atma Gamini Maggo. Atma Gamini Maggo. The first three letters were being connected to form a word called Agama. Now, Atma is a concept that was rejected by Tathagata, uh, and probably know, is description of anatta, that there is no person called me, no atta. In the Magadhi language Buddha spoke means me or I. In English, we go in Latin, uh, and in Sanskrit, the same thing is called Atma. So, Magadhi is Atta, in Sanskrit it's Atma, and in English it's me or I. So there is no person called me or I, it's an illusion that is created by the thought. And if you don't think, you won't have a notion called me. And that's very obvious, as everybody know, that in sleep you don't realize that there's a person called me, and you don't feel time. So it's also time is also linked to this person called me and the thought. So when you are awake, then you interact with the environment and start having thoughts. And in these thoughts, you always have a feeling. It's a feeling only called me, which is an illusion. So that is why Tathagata rejected that the Atta, the notion of Atta or Atma is an illusion. So in these religions, what has happened is Atma or me or I has come to the forefront. And then it became a system of practice and worship and reverence. And that sort of a way of living. A person called me, how he or she should live, interacting with the environment, others in the world. And also, it created the notion that a person called you exists, and that person has been existing the previous times, yesterday, today, and will exist tomorrow. And not only that, even after the death, you will continue to exist. So when this notion came in, these notions actually were borrowed from other religions like Hinduism and Jainism, and they have somehow uh, come into uh, the religion called Buddhism. And in after it became clear that it was a religion, the importance of seeing Buddha Dhamma uh, has been put forward to a next birth or some future existence. And what people try to do now is to behave and practice austerity and observe seal and that sort of thing, to hoping that you will achieve one day Nibbana. But Buddha's and Dhamma can be seen anytime, immediately. In the Tathagata, that's very obvious in the statements and the gathas. You will hear the word Sandipito, which means that it is not something that should be postponed. It can be seen here and now, immediately. And you have stories in the books, if they are true. Um, you will know that some of them have achieved Nibbana by listening to few words. So that is something that you will um, understand as you go along if there are further discussions. And now today I'm just going to give you an introduction as to uh, what exactly mean by moving in the path. Now in this, the most important thing, as you will now understand, is that this is this thought that is giving us the problems and not being able to see or open the eye of prajna, which is already found inside your own body. And it's a thought that hides it, the thought that prevents it. And in this thought mechanism, which is um, starting from the object outside, and then the medium, either the light or the sound or feeling of touch, and then the sense organs that collect that information, and then pass on to the mind through a system which is unique uh, in, in, uh, in this body, which is well known as Rupa, Vedi, Sanya, Sankhya, and Vijnana. And from that onwards, then you compare with your old memories and recognize, identify the object, and then it's fed back to the mind, and then it becomes a thought. So this thought process um, hides everything else because you keep getting information, and not from one organ, there are six of them. Um, and all six will continue to feed all the time information when you are awake, and you have no time to stop those and have access to the eye of Prajna within, which is within your body. So basically, we live a very busy existence, life, a way of living, and we try to accommodate the factors that have been entrenched in Buddhism, which is sort of borrowed from many other religions, to practice austerity and be nice, basically, be live happily, be nice, and be friendly to others, and uh, expect at some stage in a future life that you will accumulate something that you have already done and produce results. But it has not happened for the last 2100 years or so. And I said for about 450, 500 years, there are records of arhats and enlightened ones um, in the history, but after that, there have been no such records. So now the path to Nibbana has now opened up again after a long, long time, and it's the fact that you are very lucky in this era to be able to get to that stage. In fact, I must mention here that the common notion of seeing Nibbana is equivalent to attaining Arhatsi is not correct. Seeing Nibbana is just see. Seeing Buddha is just see. As if you saw a tree at a distance. You saw the tree and you know it's a tree. But you don't know what it is. You don't know what's there. And for you to understand the information you have there, you need to go further in this path. And these are the stages of Sakradagami, Anagami, and Arahat. To finally, at the Arahat stage, you will understand everything in Nibbana. So, at the stage of Sotapanna, it's called Yatha Bhuta Jnana Darshana. That means Yatha means the reality, Bhuta is the way it is, uh, and that is seen before you see Buddha, and then the state of Buddha will be seen, and that is also called seeing Nibbana, and that is just being just attaining Sotapanna stage, the first stage. But it is not written in the books like that, but that is the experience we have. And many others, there are about 500, 600 people who have told us that they saw a similar thing. Everybody sees the same, exactly the same, the truth of nature. And the truth is now we call Buddha and Dhamma. It's called Buddha Dhamma as well. So basically, Buddha Dhamma, in the state of Buddha Dhamma, there is no person at all, because it's just fleeting, rising and ceasing. Um, it's not the sort of consciousness that we are talking about, it's just arising and ceasing, that's all. And what arises and ceases is very important here, because that is information. And if you take your body and divide into smaller particles, and now in modern science you come to the stages of the atoms and protons and electrons, and even trying to go beyond electrons. Now this Buddha Dhamma is many, many millions further away, further into this, and if you keep dividing this, ultimately you come to a stage where you can't divide it anymore, because the so-called particle, we call it particle because there's no other word to say in English, uh, will not exist after that. And that stage is Dhamma. And that contains collection of information, an aggregate of information. So basically, whole of your body is made of information. Although we can't read it through our eyes, the eye of Prajna will read it and actually will see. At the moment, the information you gather are all deposited in your mind. You can't see them. You can use them to come to conclusions, you have thoughts, and have your own ideas. But you can't see them. But in Prajna, you can see the origin of this information. And that information is a very basic information that the whole universe is made of. So you become intelligent. And and I said at the beginning, now we are coming to towards the end of the talk, maybe another few 10 minutes or so. And what I said at the beginning, Buddha means becoming intelligent. Buddha means knowledge. The means from within. So becoming intelligent by obtaining knowledge from within. Where is this knowledge stored in your body? In Dhamma and Buddha. So first you see them, and then as time goes on, as you move along the path, and I said Sakadagami, Anagami, Arahat, you collect more and more information from those two states, and ultimately, finally, at the Buddha level, that is the Arahat level, you will know everything about it, and you will also know that there is nothing more to be known, and that is called the ultimate truth, and it's called Paramartha. Parama means ultimate, Artha means Atta. Atta means the truth. So this is the ultimate truth. It is called Parama. So now basically you have a very, very um, faint idea of where you are now and where you are going. So seeing the truth, and then of course you have to go on stages to find exactly what it is in there. So in this path, you have probably by now realized that the entry to the path is obstructed by the mind. So that is why the famous saying that you must relinquish the mind, leave behind the mind, and it's called nekkhamma in Pali and Magadhi terms, nekkhamma, and you probably would have heard in the Mangala Sutra, ye suppayutta manasa dalhena nekkhamino gautama sasanamhi. Now, the sasana is another word that you must know the meaning. Sasana means a message. So, Buddha sasana means Buddha message. And Gautama sasana, that is this particular verse, it says, Nikkamino Gautama sasana. Gautama, Buddha sasana. What is the message? Nekkhamma. Nekkhamma means relinquish. What? Ye suppayutta manasa dalhena. This mind that is tightly bound, the mind is tightly bound to go to where? To the body, physical body. Because you can't leave the mind and go anywhere. The body, everywhere you go, the body and the mind will go together. And it is to leave this mind which is tightly bound to the body, and that is the Gautama message. How many times do we hear this? In normal Buddhist talks, we don't hear very much about it. And today, I'm putting that right in front of you. And also explain why. Because the mind creates this illusion. The mind is a creator, and that's why it's called Mano Maya. Maya means illusion. It always creates illusion. It always creates something that is actually not there. But you see, you hear as if it is there. And I gave a very clear explanation as from the light rays, the color rays, and how it falls on a tree, and how you get the illusion of these leaves are green. But is that they are not actually green. They are all the colors except green. So you will find that it is actually exactly not what it is. That's what you perceive. So this mind keeps continuing to act as long as you're not asleep, as long as you're awake, and obstructs the path and prevents this ayurveda opening up. So the advice of all those who are enlightened or at least attain the stage of Sotapanna, because they know that they had to stop the mind before you move on to the path, because the mind will not allow you to the path. And this is called Cheto Vimukti. You must have heard of this word, and it is found in the first seven of after attaining Sotapanna, the Tathagata. That's called Dhamma Chakra Pavatana Sutta, and it says Akuppa Me Cheto Vimukti. That means this relinquishing the mind, stopping the thought, is unshakable and permanent, and that is when you become Sotapanna. You actually will not use the mind, and the mind disappears, is disintegrates, and it's not available to function afterwards. But another system opens up, and this is another thing that I must say at the introduction level. You, most people have not realized that there are different systems of gathering information in our body. We only use one system throughout our lives normally, and that is the mind memory access connected to the sense organs, and they get information from outside. But when you relinquish the mind, another system which is much more efficient, which is much more attractive and much more knowledgeable arises, and that is called chitta. And when you leave the state of chitta, another state arises, and that's called prajna. And from when you leave the state of prajna, and you get the final stage, and that is called buddha, and that is the final state of knowledge intelligence. So basically, now to sum up what we have done before the question time, the message of a Tathagata is becoming intelligent. How to become intelligent? When you become intelligent, you know everything about the universe without reading any books, without having to go to anybody to ask. It's all that information is inside your body. It is for you to unearth it. Nobody else can do it for you. Only people can tell you the path. This is the way you should go, and you got to do it yourself. And that is why it says, Tumyehi Kichang Atappan, that's the Pali version, Akkhataro Tathagata. That you must travel the path yourself. Tathagatas only show the way. So basically, what you want to know is the path that's leading towards Nibbana. And that path, and I'm telling you in the first introductory talk, is obstructed by your mind. If you keep using your mind, if you keep thinking, then you're going backwards. You're not going forwards in this because you can't even enter the path. And so it's very important that people should realize what you've been doing by reading books and listening to Dhamma talks and so on. If you have been listening through your mind, then it forms another illusion. And if there are opportunities in the future, we'll explain all the details how the system works. And the system that I explained, the object, the medium, and the sense organ, and then this process which is called Rupa, Vedi, Sanya, Sankhya, Vijnana, and then memory, and then back to the mind as a thought. It's the whole process what we call Cheto. And Cheto Vimukti means relinquishing and release from this process. So if you were to achieve or entering the path, then you would have by then relinquished the mind. And people begin to wonder, how can you live without using the mind? Because we've been living all the time only by using the mind. At the times that we don't use the mind, we were fast asleep. And if people don't realize that when you relinquish, when you get rid of one system, another system arises in the body, and that is the discovery of Tathagata. And these systems also keep changing until you achieve the final stage of Arahatsu. And so I hope you had some basic introduction as to the path that we have, or I have traveled, and many others um, have traveled. And in that path, it's not difficult to stop thinking, and it only takes a few minutes, even seconds, to those who are highly capable of to do that. And you will experience different system, although you have to realize that your memory is one of the things that blocks everything. And because it's a memory, without the memory, you can't have a thought. You need to compare and contrast and identify objects to have a thought, and we will discuss if there are opportunities in the future. What is a thought, and how do we stop it, and how do we enter the path towards you? And that ends today's discussion, just a brief introduction. And I hope you have been able to understand, particularly if you have listened with an open mind. Now, as you know, that there are no people who have achieved Nibbana by using the religion method, the Buddhism method, which is Buddha Darshana, in seeing Buddha. And if you awaken to that side, um, please follow the path and you will get there. And it's not difficult, and it is not difficulty is to relinquish the mind. Once you relinquish the mind, you are on the other side. And thank you very much for inviting me to do this. And I will take any questions if you have. And we have 10-15 minutes, I'm told. See whether we can answer those questions.
Okay, Dr. Gamini, uh, this is some really good sharing and very enlightening and insightful. Maybe just a small request. I think you need to speak a little bit louder. Yeah,
Oh, I
that
see. Okay.
yeah. But otherwise, you provide some really interesting view, and I did not manage to take away. I mean, write down all because I was also listening and doing all the other things. But what I understand is that nibbana is not something that we need to postpone to next life, future existence or whatnot. But it is something that you can achieve here and now. Yeah. So have the mindset that is achievable this life. Even whether lay person, non-lay person in a sangha, monastic, we all have the potential. Yeah, and there's no need to postpone it lah. As we always say that, okay, maybe next life lah. This life we try to get the sotapan, that kind of thing. But this life we can actually see nibbana. We can actually experience nibbana. I think that's one thing. Next thing that I gathered here is also there's a wealth of panya and wisdom or dharma knowledge within ourselves. So it's not by absorbing or continuously trying to absorb various dharma concept everywhere, but actually from our own we can realize the dharma by reducing the thinking, letting our mind settle. And another thing is also by not overly absorbing concept of trying to continuously process all the inputs from our all these different sharings. And number two is our senses. We have the six senses and we are continuously stimulated, and that the six senses will be one of the reasons why we are continuously being how we call it,
Exposed to
hindered,
the outside. Yes, yes.
exposed to the outside world, to the point that our real wisdom inside remain hidden.
Exactly. That's it.
Okay, but I'm not sure if I put
Understood.
that correctly. Yeah. So that what I think Dr. Gamini is trying to highlight is that if we can really, really settle ourselves, quiet down the mind and body, really can slow down the thinking process, the wisdom will naturally come out
Exactly.
without even having to look at all the different suttas and all the natural wisdom and the knowledge, the panya will come out. And I think
In
this,
fact, reading books will also be through your mind. So whatever the truth that's mentioned in the books, if you read, you will deposit as an illusion in your memory and your mind.
another
So
concept, another illusion.
and that will prevent you getting into the path.
So the ingredient is to keep the mind light, and yeah, so that we can see the wisdom to come out on its own naturally. And another thing I'm hearing, Dr. Gamini, you mentioned something that if we were to divide and subdivide this body in terms of molecule and atoms and to the nucleus, at some point you can't divide, and you will just end up with Dhamma,
Exactly. That is a collection of information.
which is
And
a
that's what
collection of information.
that is what your prajna will see. And that's the one that arises and ceases, and That is where they say anicca, dukkha, and anatta. All that description is about those. And also, they are called sankara. Sang, sang means collection. Kara means information. Karuna. In Marathi, Karuna is information. So it's a collection of information, and that's another word. Although in Buddhism, Sankara word has been slightly modified to Sanskara, and that's related to a thought process. So somehow that's got entangled with the thought process, and we have been deviated from the actual meaning of Sankara.
Okay, okay. Now we will see. There is some questions. This is coming from Brother David. I will flash it here.
Right.
He said, "To meet the Buddha Dharma in this lifetime is truly a highest blessing, but not everyone can have such an opportunity to realize it. Maybe why is it possible to attain nibbana in this lifetime?" So I think when he said realizing the Buddha Dhamma, because probably even receiving or processing too much and thinking too much, over analyzing, having too many concepts is preventing or hindering the realization of the
That's
Buddha
exactly
Dhamma.
that's the reason why everyone can have the opportunity, but they are not using it. In fact, everybody can. And you know, there are stories in the history that Tathagata has mentioned that there are only a few who will achieve this. But the history also tells in a place called Savatthi, which is known as Sarat Nuwara, there have been um, 7,500,000 people, and of those 500,000 people had attained the Sotapan stage. And so that's about 69-70% of them. So basically, what I'm saying is that that is the truth, and that everybody who can stop thinking can get onto the path and see Nibbana. And so it's a case of understanding why we can't see Nibbana and then getting rid of those obstacles. And I said that there are so many obstacles that come on the way. First is the mind and the thought. And we need to relinquish the mind and stop thinking. And that is called Nekamma and Cheto Vimukti. And that's well known and very well highlighted in the books as well, but people have not been able to understand that clearly. Because there have been various definitions that have been added on over the time by people on their own, and now they've sort of got entangled with these words, so that we can't actually get the correct meaning of those words. Are there other questions, or have I answered that question
Yeah, I
adequately?
think I think basically even from the sharing you gave just now, it is possible to realize the Dhamma, and as well as even the highest level now itself lah, within this lifetime. All
Yes,
right,
of course.
so it is
Within a
doable.
very short time. In fact, if you are prepared, if you are ready, that means if you have um, learned to how to stop thinking and still be awake though without sleeping, there are mechanisms, there are methods to do it. Very little to do as a practice. And remember, in this system, there are no rites, rituals, worship, um, and singing or reading scripts from the text. They're just yourself achieving a state where you can be awake without the mind being active. And then after that, will take you down the path. There are a few obstacles that come through, but this is the main obstacle, and it's the most difficult for people to do because they have been trained to use the mind from our school days, young days, and that is how we have been interacting with the environment through the mind. And to suddenly to stop that, it's not only just a surprise, it's alarming for some people. But those who have done that have achieved higher states, higher level of intelligence, higher level of knowledge without reading any books. And basically, the whole world will become more intelligent. And will become more intelligent, there will be no wars and fights and struggles, and because there's no self. Once you get rid of the mind, you won't feel that there's a person called me inside. Do you got any other questions?
I let me look into the. Okay, there's one more. Let me share this. Is it Dr. Gamini? With your vast experience, could you share with us how you're able to achieve seeing the true nature of things, the Dhamma, the difference between mere intellectual book knowledge and experiential knowledge of the Buddha Dhamma? Yeah.
Yes, that is the experience I was going to I was talking about. The actual experience, I said that it's not conducive. Actually, what you see, and I've given him some hint about the information you will see. I mean, the Dhamma and Buddha, they are all information. They are all knowledge. So there is a vast amount of knowledge. If I were to tell you what I saw, and you will not be able to comprehend, because the thing is with the mind. I'll tell you one thing that's very good example in here. Now in Dhamma and Buddha, you will find a word called Nirodha. Nirodha means completely disappearance, complete disappearance without a remain. Asesa nirodho. Without shesha means what, anything remaining. Now for the mind and for our modern science, you can't have a state where nothing is left after that. So if you I usually use this word in Sri Lanka, there were a lot of carts, and this cart cannot travel more than let's say 5 miles an hour. But if you let it go at 50, 100 miles per hour, you will find the wheels and the parts of the cart spread all over, broken, and these parts are still remain. But in this Nirodha state, you will not have anything left, completely annihilated, which means nothing left. And that concept you can't understand with the mind. And without understanding that, you can't understand Buddha or Dhamma. And it has to be seen. It has to be seen how it happens. And when it happens, you will know. So basically, I'm sharing, I'm hoping to share the experiences of traveling in this path rather than what I actually saw, because you will see exactly the same thing that I saw or anybody else had seen during the recent past. Um, so what you want to know is not to accumulate any more knowledge regarding Dhamma or Buddha through your mind, but to get rid of the mind and allow your body to take that path without thinking. And that experiment is what you call Arya Paryashana. Arya Paryashana. The experiment before, that means using the mind now, like listening to this talk, most of them are using the mind to listen to this, understand. And that is called Anarya Paryashana. Paryashana means the experiment. Arya means the noble, Anarya means not so noble. So when you know that you are using the mind, you are not so noble. And if you want to become noble, or that means knowledgeable, that means intelligent, then you need to move away from thinking and the mind. And that part we will share with you how to do it, and you can do it. Some people who have not adhered to any concepts and say, oh, I know, I am the one who knows. I know, the person I know, the person who says I know, will not be able to get into the path, because there is this I behind that knowledge, and that is also knowledge of illusions. And so in the path, as you relinquish the mind, you lose that notion I, and then only you move in the path. Any other questions, please?
Wow. Uh, Dr. Gamini, I definitely need to play back this one because you share a lot, and some part I can understand. I also need some time to absorb. So, but basically, how then, Dr. Gamini? I mean, we still need to be guided, right? That is why we have all these Dhamma sharings and all. How then we should approach Dhamma sharings, lah? So that it doesn't become like another concept that we add on, but rather that whenever we receive, it's more like a guidance to progress. How do
That's
we? Yeah.
a very good question. In other words, you're asking basically how do we understand without thinking? How do we understand what you say? Because you say if you start thinking, you go backwards, right? And you're asking how do we understand without thinking? There is a way. There is a way, and that is the way that's been hidden or lost over the last 2,100 years. Now it's open to you. And for the moment, we'll explain that as we go along, but for the moment, you just understand the concept and do not put that in the memory. Do not feed the memory because it's the memory that feeds the mind. So trying to stop these, the truth that you have listening to becoming untruth, like in the form of an illusion, you deposit it. Um, so you just listen, understand, but don't try to analyze. Just take it to the face value. What as you hear, you understand, and that's it. Don't remember anything, but it's there somewhere. It's not in the mind or in the memory. But you will find out later where it is, and you will be able to extract them once you complete this first stage of the path. So all I'm advising is because if you're telling me, look, you are telling me that you shouldn't think, and how do we understand you without thinking? It can be done, and you just understand the concept. That's it. Do not put on the memory because if it goes into the memory, and that means at the end of the lecture, somebody asks you what did he say, you should not be able to say anything. But you've understood everything. And that is the path to intelligence.
Yeah, this is a very good guidance. And we have one more question. This one is from, let me show this, from Sister Sharon Sue. They said the scientific truth is based on facts. Dharma is based on true experience, wisdom, and insight. Dr. Gamini, is this correct to conclude? Thank
It's
you.
very correct. It's very correct because scientific truth. What is modern science? It's modern science is again observed through thoughts, the experiment, the observation, and then an inference, and that is the scientific path to come to a conclusion. And they are all done by your mind. And if not your mind, it is the equipment that have been made by using your mind. You know, the various processes you include and make an equipment. And then you analyze the information you get from that equipment. So that is also part of this illusion and also mind based. But Dhamma is based on experience and insight. Now you very good that you brought that word insight and wisdom. Now, wisdom is a word that we use in English for lots of things, but not to the actual proper use of word in Buddha Dhamma. And wisdom is the knowledge that you get from Dhamma and Buddha. But insight is looking inside, looking in, directing your experiment inwards, trying to observe inside. That is what we call insight. And insight now, not only just looking at, it's seeing. So you see the word sight in that, the part of the word sight. Sight means seeing. Insight means seeing inside. And that is exactly what prajna, I will do. If you open it up, it will see inside. And when it sees inside, you will see Buddha Dhamma and nothing else. No illusions, no pictures, no images. It's just Buddha Dhamma and that is knowledge.
Yeah, very insightful indeed, Dr. Gamini. In fact, just to share, this is a comment coming from a request coming from Sister Sally Wong. They could you be have you back for part two? Thank you, Dr. Gamini.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, yeah.
But I understand that you are booked up, normally you're booked up for minutes. So when the opportunity arises, I'll be delighted to be with you.
Dr. Gamini, we certainly, I don't know if you could do this. I'm not sure if you have enough time, but I thought that if you could share some tips on how we can start practicing and reducing the thinking bit, some of the practical tips in a very concise format, if that's possible to share with the group.
I could do. It's just a little experiment you can do. You Ideally, this should be done only when you have understood what a thought is and how do we stop the thought. But generally, without knowing anything, without investigating anything, if you are capable of just following instructions only, without asking yourself, why am I doing this? Then There are not many people who would like to do that because somebody else says it. But if you are capable of doing that, just do only this bit, and you will see the difference. How relaxed you are. You look at an object at a distance, about 100 yards or so, if you can, at least 50 yards. Um, Ideally, we ask them to look at a tree because there are so many trees around. You can look at any object that you are capable of investigating, because there's no point looking at a wall or something which has nothing to investigate. So you look at a tree, just you need to look at the branch at the top of the tree, and a distance where you cannot actually identify what kind of a tree it is, whether it's a mango tree or any other tree. But don't look at trees, coconut trees, because you can you can identify that from very far. And then just keep looking at, first you look at it, and then for about 10 seconds, very short time, stay blank without investigating it. Normally, what we do when we look at an object, we always look at and investigate. All the senses come into play. And if you look at, let's say, a tree, what kind of tree, whether there are fruits, flowers, and at the end, if you see the fruits, you will also get the taste of it as well. So that is the way the mind works, and we are trying to stop the mind doing it. So you look at this tree blank without investigating it for about 10 seconds, not very long. And after that, you look at the midpoint, part of the space between you and the tree. Don't look very close because it hurts the eye, but look at least 20, 30 yards in front of you, ideally about 50 yards, and look at the blank space. Now, you're not looking at the tree now. That tree might be there, blurred in your background, but that doesn't matter. You're not looking at it. You look at just empty space. And you stay like that if you can for about 10 minutes. Initially, the eye, you feel uncomfortable in the eye because eye doesn't like to see empty places. I always want a rupa, an image to see. But once you get used to it, it forgets that, and it learns how to look at space. And just stay for that for 10 minutes. Now, previously 10 seconds without investigating the tree, and then now looking at the space for 10 minutes. And in during that time, if you hear a noise, just ignore it if you can, or it is only hearing only. Do not follow that. Don't try to find out what it was and analyze that. And if you get a thought in between from your memory, just let it go and don't even react to it. And don't even say this thought disturbed me, because then you're back in the mind. So you ignore all that, and if you can, so ideally it should be a place of less noise. Um, if you can stay for 10 minutes looking at that space, um, then at the end of the session, you will realize that you didn't know the time going, and you didn't realize there was a person called me during that time. You only realize it after you come out of it back into your mind, because that time you are awake not from your mind and from a different mechanism, and that's what we call chitta. And the wakefulness within the mind is called vijnana, whereas the wakefulness through the chitta is called jnana. It's completely different. Is the opposite. Means opposite of jnana is vijnana. So it's a different mechanism, completely different, but we don't want to understand all the mechanisms. Those who want to just follow instructions vaguely without analyzing, because if you try to analyze, you go backwards. In this situation, because you asked me, I said that normally I would have said long after many talks into how you understood what the thought is, how it is formed, and what are the components of the thought, how do you break the respective components of the thought so that you won't fall asleep when you stop thinking. And this is the mechanism that at the end, the practical that we ask other people to do and have followed and been very successful. So if you can do that, that's fine. If you don't worry. You don't have to, because until you understand, once you understand it, it becomes even much easier.
Okay. Um, this is Dr. Gamini. These are some really good tips, and I'm starting to put in practice this morning, and I hope to continue tomorrow.
Right.
And yeah, one step at a time. I'm not yet progressing very well, but I'm still trying myself.
We
So
we will do 2 or 3 10-minute sessions. That's all we ask people to do. Just 10 minutes in your busy life, and preferably in the morning when there's light because you have to see far during daytime. That's all. And if you do it about 3 4 times, you become an expert again if you do it properly.
okay, all right. Dr. Gamini, actually, I believe there's more to share. Definitely, we hope that you can come again and share the part two. There's a direct request, as you can see. But I think we are coming to the end and of the Dharma sharing today. And as part of our traditional observances, we will now conduct the Anumodana, the transference of merits to the dearly departed and to the Devas. So today I'll be conducting it. Yeah. This is the transference of merits to all the celestial beings. So we will wish these three areas. May all beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit, and may they long protect the dispensation. May the devas and nagas of mighty power share this merit, and may they long protect the teachings of the Buddha. May the devas and nagas of mighty power share this merit, and may they long protect all beings. And this is also conducting the transference of merits to the departed relatives. Yeah. So let this merit accrue to our departed relatives, and may they be happy. Let this merit accrue to our departed relatives, and may they be happy. Let this merit accrue to our departed relatives, and may they all be happy. On behalf of the Mahasangha and the management of the Buddhist Mahavihara, we wish to express our appreciation, gratitude, and thank you to you, Dr. Gamini, for the excellent sharing tonight, sponsors of this Dharma sharing, and the viewers who have listened in. Yeah. And a final note, don't forget to subscribe to the BMB Dharma Dana YouTube channel. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Dr. Gavini, do you have a few last words that you want to share?
Yes, I must thank all the organizers of this event for inviting me to talk here today. And also, I understand that we always mention the Mahasangha, particularly Venerable Namaratana Thera, who is Chief incumbent of this Mahavihara. And also, thanks to Kirindi Brahmananda Venerable Thera as well, who have, I understand, initiated this Mahavihara um, concept and brought people together to understand whatever that's left in the tradition or Buddhism. And that's the reason why you are here today is also because you have been gathered over the last 10 15 years from time to time to listen to these sort of discussions. And so we thank all those who have been responsible, and thanking you who have joined us today, and those who pose questions, and of course thank Caroline for mediating this, and you did it excellently. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gabini,
Thank you.
for the
Thank you.
sharing. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Dr. Gabini, just stay on for a while. We will end this broadcast, but just stay to, yeah.
Okay.